Good evening, and welcome to the August gathering of the Maine Public Book Club. I'm your host, Bill Nemitz, and this evening we welcome Shannon Parker, author of the aptly named novel, Love and Lobsters. Now, even if you thought you knew everything there was to know about a Maine lobster, I have no doubt that you came away from this book enlightened by certain, shall we say, proclivities of our crustacean neighbors just off the coast, not to mention the many and varied people who call this coast home. We're going to dive into all of that in just a minute, but first, I'd like to thank Sherman's Maine Coast Bookshops, the Park Danforth, and Coffee by Design for their generous support of the book club. Without it, our book club events would not be possible. I'd also like to give a tip of the hat to our bookstore partners, where many of you picked up your copy of Love and Lobsters. Thanks to Bookstacks in Bucksport, None Such Books and More in South Portland, Mockingbird Bookshop in Bath, Sherman's Maine Coast Bookshops, DDG Booksellers in Farmington, Left Bank Books in Belfast, The Book Tenders in York, and Print in Portland. Some of you have already submitted questions for Shannon, and thank you for that. We'll do our best to work them into the conversation this evening. If you have a question during our chat, send it over to us at fun@mainepublic.org, and I'll try to include it as well. So, let's get started. Before publishing Love and Lobsters last fall, Shannon M. Parker wrote two other novels, The Girl Who Fell and The Rattled Bones. She holds 3 master's degrees in writing and linguistics, the most recent awarded by Harvard University just this past spring. She lives in Damariscotta, and no, despite what readers might assume, she's not a female lobster woman. But she sure knows a lot about lobsters, not to mention love. Shannon, welcome.
Thank you. It's lovely to be here. I'm a huge fan.
Thanks. I have to begin with a very basic question because there's so many facets to this story. But in its entirety, how did this story come to you? Love and lobsters and everything in between.
Yeah, that's such a great question. I think I've read so many books about people coming back to Maine to move into grandma's house for the summer and reconnect with 4 college friends, and the author gets you there and you're authentically in Maine, and then for the next 300 pages you're sort of like in anywhere coastal village. And I just thought, boy, I'd really like to have a story that's authentically Maine. And in that, one of the things that's authentic is that lobsters don't mate for life. So Phoebe Buffet from Friends has made it culturally acceptable to believe that like love and lobsters go hand in hand. And so I just thought, okay, I kind of filed that away in my head. And then I had a text from a friend of mine, and I don't know, somehow I referenced cannibalism in the text, which makes me sound like a terrible person. I promise it wasn't anything terrible. But she just responded to it very casually. And I said, hang on, I just texted about cannibalism and you didn't call me out for it. She said something really bantery, like, let's be honest, every text is 1 sentence away from cannibalism. And I just remember being in my kitchen, laughing out loud and thinking, okay, this is the real Maine. This is just people who are just bantering and having fun. And I just really just partnered that in my head with this thought I had about real Maine coast, and then how lobsters really act, and then this friendship that we, have this bantery thing, and that it just all triangulated from there.
Yeah, it just grew out of that. I'm going to go right to an audience question because we did get a number of them, as I suspected we would on this book. This reader writes, we don't hear a lot about females in the lobstering industry in the media, and the reader, thought it was great to see them represented. What was the thought process behind making your main character a female? Now, this person says female lobster woman, but I guess we'll allow that.
That's okay. We'll forgive her. She's watching your show and asking a question. She's lovely. Yeah, so I think that I was raised by a single mom on a farm. We did all the hard work through it all, right? Like women are just constantly showing up to do all of it, the caregiving, the child rearing, the caring for aging parents, and working. And as we've moved into these male-dominated professions, I think it's crazy to me that we don't even have kind of names for them in some of these professions, right? And so I just like the way female lobster fishermen are like, yeah, that's who we are. We're doing this same job. Don't call me a lobster woman. And I just love that through line. So I thought, why not? I always write about powerful women doing really strong things, unexpected things for a career. So I
Mhm.
leaned into it for this one too.
So that explains Charlie's insistence on being called a female lobsterman.
Yeah, and that's really authentic. Like I met many females who are working the sea and they said, "Don't call me a lobster woman. I'm a
Ah,
lobsterman. I just happen to be a female."
that's interesting. Not being a female lobster woman, you display a stunning amount of knowledge about lobsters in this book. I'll go quickly to another reader who asked, I heard that you consulted with harbor masters to customize the setting of your book. Was it important to you to consult with the people in the industry to build your world? I suspect it was essential to you.
Yeah, I didn't consult with harbor masters plural for my world building. I consulted with a couple of harbor masters for their knowledge of the industry, and
Mhm.
the harbor masters specifically that I spoke with were also fishermen. But I would say my answer to this is always like writers are creepy people. We're kind of always just watching what's happening around us, watching the people come and go. So as I'm around South Bristol, as I visit there on land and sea, I listen to the rhythm of people working the ocean. And this has been from my time as a young person on Cape Cod, down at Cape Cod Canal, all the way up to my time here in Maine. And I just log all that away. And then when the story started to form, I was able to have those contacts to reach out to say, keep me honest here, right? So like I had lobstermen saying, don't call them lobsters, call them bugs, or,
Mhm.
or this is the weirdest thing I've pulled up from the ocean kind of thing. So yes, I talked to many, many, many people who pull lobsters from the sea.
And what kind of reception did you get there? Now, as you said, South Bristol is about as close in reality as we get to Christmas Cove, I assume. But did you, as a journalist, we all used to face that thing where you walk into a situation with a notebook and people run the other way sometimes. So
Yeah.
did you have to kind of ingratiate yourself with that community, or did it take time? How did that work?
Yeah, great question. So, to be clear, the book is set on a fictionalized version of Christmas Cove, and I have a friend who owns a cottage called the Firs, and it looks out over the Gulf of Maine. It was built in the 40s by his grandfather. It's a traditional Maine cottage, and that's where my brain was when I was writing this book. So, sitting on that porch looking out. So it really is that real place, and I put a lighthouse there, and I put some other amenities that don't exist for a work of fiction, but really when I went out to talk to people, I didn't have a notepad. I wasn't a journalist. So it was more like having a drink at the bar. And I think people are fascinated that I was interested in their profession. That's what I got most of all. Nobody
Hmm.
felt like too protective, like they didn't want to tell me something. They were mostly like, hey, that's really cool that you want to write about this because to them, it's their job, right? Like this
Yeah,
is just a
yeah.
Tuesday for them. But for me, it's fascinating because I don't know that world. I found people were phenomenal. I was so impressed with how much they offered up.
And what about the scientific part of it? Because, you can split the lobstering part of this into two halves. One is above the water, what life is like on the boat and fishing and all that. And the other is below the water, where I think I was most fascinated reading this because there were so many things in there that you write about in terms of mating, reproduction, but also self-defense,
Yeah.
the growth process, all these things. Did you consult scientific sources for this, or did you read a lot, or what?
Yeah, many. I think I'm a researcher at heart. I love academia, as you said in my opening. Like, I go back there because I understand the rhythm of it, right? You get an assignment, you do the work, you produce the thing, and I'm very comfortable with that kind of through line for research. And luckily for me, there's a wide body of information that exists about scientific research of lobsters to the point that they can do it in the wild, right? Like many of these, the way that we watch lobster behavior is in cultivated environments,
Mhm.
like down in Woods
Mhm.
Hole, for example. Um, but yeah, I leaned really heavily on people who've written tremendous stuff on this subject before. And then I brought it into the cultural, conversation of how can we talk about this outside of the scientific realm so that the reader's learning something without feeling like they're being hit over the head with learning
Right,
something,
right.
right? It's kind
Lectured
of
to,
like,
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's sort of the way I parent, I'm like, I don't want to like give you the big sermon on what you should know, but if I present it in a cool way, something might stick.
Well, they don't have names, but it's at times the lobsters are characters in this book.
For
I mean,
sure.
I felt rather voyeuristic at times, looking in on them as they went about their lives. Let's talk a little bit about some of the characters here because there's such they make such made such strong impressions for me. Starting, of course, with Mem, who I think is just a remarkable woman. Obviously, the anchor in Charlie's life. She's just getting over a serious case of cancer, and you'd think her life was winding down, and yet she still has room for romance and the wedding of all weddings to Herman. And I came away thinking that without Mem, Christmas Cove would be a far, far different place. And what inspired this character? Is it someone in your life, or does every community need a matriarch?
Well, for sure, every community needs a matriarch. Let's just stop there for me.
Okay.
I don't have a mem in my life. She's not one person. I am lucky to say that I have many mems in my life, and they show up in different ages. But I think that they are sages in all these different ways, and they have just put their arms around me and gathered me up and given me their wisdom, and I slow down enough to listen. I think that's the important thing about Mem, right? She keeps it short and sweet, so you got to listen to her. You know there's
Right.
something that she's saying there, and you got to catch that nugget. I would say that, yeah, Mem's like an amalgamation of all those women that I've been really
And
fortunate to know.
and Maya the same because she's the other.
Yeah.
We have Charlie, Mem, and Maya as these very, very not only strong female characters, but really the dominant characters in the whole story. Who's Maya? Is Maya a conglomeration?
Probably. Maya's got a little bit of me in her. Yeah. I mean, it's not
Okay.
me. It's not written about me, but yeah, I mean, the witty comebacks, the quick banter, that's,
Yeah.
life growing up in a big Irish family. It's my
Yeah.
first language, right?
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
she's an overachiever, that's for sure. I mean, the way that festival came together was nothing short of remarkable, especially usually I was thinking about things that happen in my small town here in Buxton, and, you know, ideas like that are born, and then it takes a long time for them to reach fruition, let alone become a tradition. And
Yeah.
this all took place in what, less than a month that this whole
Pretty
town put
much.
this thing together.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, I've met women built of fire who do these things. They say, we want to do this. The town wants it. This is good for the community. And they put those resources together to make it happen. So it is a book of fiction. It's in a tight time frame in the book. But I've seen it happen in real life here in Maine many times. And it's
yeah,
wonderful to watch.
yeah. People. It's all about people coming together and rowing in
Yeah.
the same direction.
Yeah. Right.
Uh, this story also had me thinking a lot about assumptions and uh, and how the assumptions morph very quickly into fact, and even though they often turn out to be wrong. And for example, the assumption that Hannah was Logan's wife, or that Logan was from away and not here in Maine, despite his Maine license plates, and
Yeah.
and Logan's assumption that Charlie and Haggard were an item. And so it led me to think about kind of the danger of assumptions and how these days, more than ever, it seems that assumptions seem to be getting us in all kinds of trouble when it comes to misinformation, misunderstandings, and all these things. Uh, were these assumptions in the book a way simply to maintain a mysterious plot line, or were they also a commentary on that danger of how, you don't jump to conclusions?
Yeah, a little bit of both probably. I think it all really comes down to, does our hard shell protect us, or does it keep us from finding love or strong relationships, whether that's platonic love or romantic love? And sometimes I think we are living in our bodies and our minds as our authentic selves, but we're not often projecting that to the outside. And it takes an enormous amount of risk to like talk about your personal stuff with another person and put and let down that armor. And of course, lobsters have their own built-in armor. So it matches that theme through the book. But yeah, it's a sense of like our assumptions that we're making about other people, what do they say about us? Right? Because that's what it's really doing. It's shining a light back on why are we making these assumptions? What about those assumptions that we're making keeps us feeling safe? Right?
Mm. Mhm.
And yeah, I play with that a lot because I want people to be surprised by Hannah and I want people to think about how they look at other people because
Yeah, I mean, I was riddling that in my head, chapter after chapter after chapter, saying, "Okay, she's not going to be his wife. I can just feel that." And then at one point, Maya hits on one of my suspicions and says, maybe she's his sister. And I thought, well, that's what I've been thinking too, Maya, but let's see what happens. And never in my wildest imagination did I think that she would be the wife of his late.
you
What?
can't spoil it, Bill. You're walking into a spoiler alert for anyone who hasn't read it.
Oh no, we assume that people have read it
Okay,
on this book
good.
club. Okay,
Okay.
so
Phew.
but anyway,
Yes.
little did that was a pretty ingenious plot twist to have because it had the level of intimacy that was
Yeah.
required without any of the romantic complication.
Yeah, I think that's really born out of the fact that I have a really non-traditional family. My family is a found family. My children are adopted out of foster care. We did not, we do not share blood, but we share this amazing love that is born out of something very untraditional. And so when we think of the people around us, we have these slots like sister, brother, mother, father, but they're not always the same thing, right? We're all shifting within each other's worlds. And I just wanted to take a look at that and say, like, it's not always the nuclear family that's holding you up. It's this other group of people or community or another person or two that are shoring you up, the mentors that we have in our lives. And it's expansive, right? It's not just the people we come home to, the people we choose, or the people we were born to. It resonates so far out from there. So
Mhm. Uh,
yeah.
let's talk about Logan.
Yeah.
And you mentioned your husband, and you mentioned, I believe, in your acknowledgments at the end of the book that somebody told you somewhat belatedly, and it was, and then you realized they were right that they saw a lot of Logan in your husband.
Mhm.
Uh, did he know you were working him into this perfect man role that you did?
Uh, I don't know. I didn't know it, so I'm not sure he was aware of
Oh,
it.
that's true. Yeah, right.
Um, of course, I say this in my acknowledgments. Of course, it would be based on this person I've loved so strongly for 30 years. But I will say one really neat thing about writing this book was I have a dear friend who has a little writing cabin on a pond, and I go there in the summers, and for 5 weeks I just jam out a really bad draft of a book. And so in the mornings, I would come home and my husband would have his coffee and I would read him the 3 chapters that I wrote the day before. And I was listening to the book as it was forming, as into a
Mhm.
real story. And it's a terrible first draft, but I was getting his response in real time, which then gave me I don't know, confidence and just excitement to move on with the next 3 chapters. And so he was really a part of the formation of this book. And I think when you spend that much time together and there's this intimate exchange of creativity and art, of course his voice would come through in Logan's character, right? But also
Sure. Yeah.
Charlie's really amazing. And I like if she's gonna wait for love, I want her to get Logan, like I want the prize to be this wonderful human being. And so he
Yeah.
really had to be just solid and funny and kind and a little bit mysterious, but just a kind of a sleeper too, like you're not really
Yeah.
sure what's going on with Logan at times.
And vulnerable himself too. I mean,
Yes.
he had his moments like when he saw her giving Haggard a peck on the cheek, and he thought all was lost, so
Sure.
it's
Yeah.
that side of him you wouldn't immediately see, but because everybody has their insecurities. As Charlie begins her writing career with the blog postings, which was just hilarious the way it came about. Uh, she seems so blissfully unaware and maybe not even caring that much about what people thought about what she wrote. And she and until finally Maya tells her, look at the comments, and she looks at the comments and knocks her off her seat.
Mhm.
But I was curious, if is that could the same be said of you? How do you feel when you write something and it goes out there? Do you wait nervously for feedback, or do you just move on?
I think any writer who's sending anything to anyone waits nervously for feedback. I mean, in the industry, we're always like refreshing our email every 5 seconds to see if our agent liked it, to see if an editor is liking it, right? To see if a trade review has come through yet. But when I published my first book, I kind of had no idea that it was going to be a book. It's so silly, right? Like it's sold to Simon and Schuster. I know Simon and Schuster publishes books, and then it was like all of a sudden on a shelf in an advanced reader copy, and it just hit me that like it was no longer a Word document. It was actually alive in the world and outside of my world. And my husband did the most loving thing I think he's ever done. He changed the password on my Goodreads account because
Huh.
he's like, this isn't serving you, right? Like, you don't need to read as many good reviews as come in. You don't need to read the ones that it didn't resonate with somebody.
Right.
And he was like, you're searching for perfection in a subjective space, right? Like,
Mm.
not everybody is going to love any book that goes out. And I had an author friend of mine say to me once, go to your favorite book, right? The one that just you read every year, you love it, you stand by it as your favorite book, and look at the comments. And for sure, 10% of the people will think it's a 1 or 2 star read, right? It's just that gauge of like,
Yeah. Yeah.
we're in this spectrum. So for me, I
I,
think,
I I think some people live just to post those kind of reviews. You know what I
yes,
mean? I mean, there's some
yeah.
people who are just wired that way.
I think it's its own part of like being part of the publication process as you get to comment on other people, other
Yeah. Yeah.
writers' work. So for me, I think, yeah, I try to tune out that noise. Writing my second book was really hard because it was a different experience, right? In the first book, you're just you and your computer and your story. And then the second book, you've got when the trade reviews are coming, you know what your agent wants from you, you know what the editor's expecting from you. If you've had an advance, you've already been paid for the work. There's a different kind of pressure surrounding that. So you have all these sort of voices on your shoulder as you write and create. And yeah, this one felt wholly different, maybe different genre, but I fell in love with this book. I tell people that the process of writing this book is so much like the process of falling in love. I was just intoxicated. I
Mhm.
couldn't do it fast enough. I was falling for it every day. I just was racing to get back to the computer, and it was all just rushing through me. Really intoxicating.
Hmm.
And
Yeah, it's
and
fascinating.
yeah,
Well, speaking of the blog, this might be a good time for you to do a little reading for us, because I understand you have one from, was it, I believe, the first Lobster Post, Love and
I
Lobster
think
Post?
this is her second one. I
Second
should
one.
know that
Okay.
as the author. I should say that with more definitive knowledge, but I believe this is the second one. But yeah, so throughout the book, most of your viewers have read the novel, but for those who haven't, these blogs appear throughout the book, and there's about 8 of them, and they're titled Love and Lobsters. So I'd be happy to read if that's what you like.
Yes, sure. Go right ahead.
Love and Lobsters. A Maine lobsterman will never pull an empty pot. It literally cannot happen. In fact, we harvest all sorts of life from the deep. The unpleasant surprise of a monkfish is common enough, a creature that's nicknamed the sea devil for its vicious bite and matching attitude. I've hauled up horseshoe crabs, those living fossils that have existed for 445 million years, scurrying along the ocean's floor long before dinosaurs existed on land. And I've always felt a little lucky to pull up a sea raven, a fish named for its enormous pectoral fins that were once wings before the critter settled into its resolute existence as a bottom dweller. Once I caught a boot. A prank, for sure, but a boot nonetheless. Still, a trap from the deep won't be empty. It's impossible. Even if some contain no sea life at all, every trap carries water to the surface. The ocean itself is dragged up from the bottom only to reach the side of the boat where it spills back into the waves, churning brine into the great tide. Lobstermen have a term for this type of haul, changing the water. I've changed my fair share of water, all lobstermen have, but we never pull empty traps. See, as a species, Maine lobstermen are an optimistic bunch. Changing the water isn't a euphemism for defeat, it's an opportunity. And I think this says something about our integrity, our grit, our determination. Nothing worth pursuing is easy. Nothing. So, what do unexpected hauls have to do with love? Clearly, I'm no expert, but I've had days when I accomplished more than changing the water. Like the first time I fished, when I hauled one cobalt blue lobster over the edge of my father's boat, my young mind seeing the creature as a jewel, the reigning benevolent queen of all the lobsters. With her fancy royal blue blood and matching regal shell, she wasn't a queen among her rusty brown species. She was just different, an exception, exceptional. There's a complicated scientific reason why her unique mix of chemicals and proteins made her different, but that never mattered. She was blue and she was mine. I named her Birdie Blue because she was the same color as the bluebirds that visit our peninsula all year out of season. By the time I tossed her back to the sea with a snack, she was forged in my memory and my heart. To me, she was remarkable because she was rare. The chances of catching a blue lobster are 1 in 2 million. Fishing is a gamble for sure, and no one would bet on odds like those. Still, she was my first, my blue, a nearly impossible occurrence turned possible. Years later, when I was a teenager, a bright orange lobster watched me as she was tugged up from the sea, as if I were the one surfacing in her world. She wore such a vivid, carroty hue, I'd been convinced I'd hauled a cooked lobster to the sunlight. But when she arrived on deck, she was alive, clawing and curious, her antenna investigating me as I studied the wonder of her. Her bright shell glistened in the bright sun, and I named her Clementine before gifting her a herring inserted into her crusher claw and sending her on her journey to continue life as a lobster. The chances of us meeting were 1 in 30 million. Other Maine lobster fishermen have caught split-colored lobsters, crustaceans who sport a shell that can be blue on one side and orange or brown on the other, the divided color occurring in a straight line, completely symmetrical, as if the two sides of the creature were fused together to make one. Typically, the blue side is female, the other male, the blend marking it as a true natural wonder, a gem. My best friend, your fearless editor, calls these Gemini lobsters, and the chances of catching a two-sided Gemini is 1 in 50 million. And somewhere out there is a cotton candy lobster, a find so singularly scarce that she exists in rarefied air, or seawater as it were, with a shell that shines like the pearlescent interior of an oyster, shifting and sparkling through a range of colors like pink, baby blue, aqua, and pearl. If you see her, you'll know she's 1 in 100 million. All this is to illustrate how fishing is filled with chance and awe. Some days I spend a lot of time changing the water. Other days I marvel over the unexpected treasures of the deep. It makes me think that the chances of meeting a person who gets you, sees you, accepts you, and inspires you aren't so different from my chances of pulling marbles from the sea. For those of you fishing for love, in a friend or spouse or partner, wait for the 1 in 2 million. Or better yet, hold out for the 1 in 100 million. A wonder that's pearlescent and glowing, every side of them a discovery of art and beauty and exceptionality. Because the wait will be worth it, the search a beautiful journey. The sea is filled with average, everyday lobsters who stay close to home and remain easy to catch, but I keep fishing for the cotton candy lobster, or a chance to see my birdie blue again, or for anything unexpected, because a once-in-a-lifetime catch is intoxicating, maybe even as potent and memorable as finding a once-in-a-lifetime love. I send the post to Maya with the message, in case you need a reminder, you're my 1 in 100 million.
Yeah. Mm. You know, as you describe that, especially the part where Charlie's the young girl out with her dad and catches her first, the blue lobster, her first, I found myself uh, seeing it, thinking cinematically, this is gold. This is what a scene. And that leads us to one question. One reader noticed that both on the website and I noticed on the book as well, it says that this book has been optioned for a film. And this reader wants to know, what was your reaction to finding out that news? And what does the process look like when an author is approached to make their novel into a film adaptation? You're early in that process right now, or where are we?
Early-ish. Yeah, I mean, the process can be very long. It can be very short. A lot of yeses have to line up for a movie to be made.
Mhm.
Um, what did it feel like? Really surreal. I went to the first meeting and with one company who had reached out to me and they said, "Who do you picture playing Charlie?" I said, I don't. I'm a writer. I made her up in my head. And they had a list of actresses that they like, one in particular, they felt like that was the person. I thought, yeah, I could get behind that. But as a writer, I don't think that way. My job is to build the setting and build the scene and build that cinema for you, right?
Mhm.
And they're
Yeah.
thinking about it with the director producer lens. And yeah, it's very surreal. So I think that I keep saying at my different events that I go to that I've really lobbied hard to have Mainers be extras in the film because the company I ended up going with, there was two companies who reached out, and the one I ended up going with wants to produce it locally, and that was
Oh,
really
wonderful.
important to me. Yeah, and they had asked me if I wanted to be a screenwriter on the project, and I said, "You don't want me to be a screenwriter on the project because that's not what I do, right? Somebody else can do that better." But they did ask me to be a dialogue authentication coach or something like that. Like,
Hmm.
will you be there and be part of it to make sure we get the dialogue right? Because it
Just
was
to
really
kind of
important.
sound the alarm when it goes off track with
Yeah,
authenticity.
right. Yeah, and I thought how beautiful that you're already thinking that far down this process, right? That you want to keep it authentic. So
Yeah.
anyway, and then so I keep saying, look, I want to have extras from Maine there. So stay in touch with me on my website. And if it happens, we can have a bunch of people at a cove somewhere. I don't know.
Well, I'm sure. I'm sure there's some Maine lobstermen out there who would love that. Love
I
the
hope
chance to
so.
be in the background of something like that.
Yeah.
Uh, I have another. Oh, I had one here, and now I set it aside. Oh yeah, yeah. This is from another reader. Charlie compares human love with lobsters and their behavior. What are some of the key things that love and lobster? If you had to give us a bullet list of commonalities between love and lobsters, what would it be? Or perhaps humans falling in love and lobsters falling in love.
Yeah, I mean, they're completely different. I mean, I know I just literally wrote a book on it, but they're so different. I think it's like, I think when you're finding love, you have to, again, you have to let go of your hard shell if that's what you think is protecting, and you have to become vulnerable to let somebody else in. And that's really difficult for humans. We are hardwired to protect ourselves. Lobsters are hardwired to protect themselves. But I think, yeah, I would say that culturally we connect love and lobsters in this really like cutesy way, right? When all wedding invitations have a lobster on them these days if they're getting married on the coast, right? But look for the real thing. What's the real thing happening? Because lobsters aren't really killing it in their relationships, right? Like they're fighting with one another and it's hard scrabble. But as a human, when you're looking for that person, or maybe it's even self-love, like when you're looking to really invest in love, look for the thing that's real, not the thing that's marketed as real. And
Mhm.
that I
Yeah.
think is like my big takeaway. Because you can
Mhm.
get really caught up in the Instagram and the Hallmark movies and the what it's supposed to be. But if you look at what it really feels like for you and you can stay true to yourself as you find that, that to me is the most lovely thing
Yeah.
because it strengthens us all.
Another reader asked, we're going to go to something inanimate now. Well,
Okay.
maybe not inanimate, but this person asked, what is the significance of the lighthouse in the story?
Hmm. Yeah, I love lighthouses. I have a fascination with lighthouses and barns. I think they keep us safe and nourished. They're two things I really love about New England and its history and its culture. And I'm on the water a lot. I live on the mid coast and I depend on lighthouses and maps and signs to tell me where the shoals are, like to, to keep myself safe. And I just always love this idea of like a guiding light, right? Like, and I think that's the people that we love. They are home, right? It's not your house that you live in, it's the people you come home to. And they can not only help you to see things in a new and unexpected way, but they guide you home and keep you safe. And I think what better analogy for love and protection in our short human life.
Yeah,
So
that leads me to my another little parlor game I played while reading. As I got deeper and deeper into the book, I was thinking, how is she going to end it? And there were clues like the happily ever after theme of Maya's whole enterprise, but and as I got near the end of it, I was thinking, well, there aren't enough pages left for anything to go terribly wrong here. So that's a good sign. But I couldn't figure out how it was going to end. And then when it ended with the lighthouse, uh, I slapped myself up that side of the head and said, it's been there looking at you the whole time. Of course, that's going to play a role. When did that ending come to you?
probably around when I was writing the ending. No.
Really, it wasn't because sometimes you get this brilliant ending and you have to put it out there until you get to it, but this wasn't the case, huh?
No, I'm not brilliant. I definitely loved the idea of like women building this lighthouse while men were at war, right? Like how do we keep society going when a country's at war and having this kind of like foundational light in their community. And as many things, like through time, often these stalwarts from the past don't work anymore. And that's what we're seeing with this lighthouse.
Hmm.
And I wasn't really sure where I was going with it, honestly, in the book. And then as I got to know Logan more, maybe as I realized he was my husband, who's also engineer, I maybe that all came together in my head some way. But I thought one of the scariest things about creativity is putting it out there, right? And so Charlie does the most frightening thing. She bears herself and her words to say, this is my innermost thinking. This is who I am on the inside. And so, what more beautiful gift than for Logan to come back and say, I can do this too. I can come to you and bear something from the
Hmm.
inside
Yeah,
and
yeah,
also simultaneously tell you that you are my light.
yeah,
And
yeah.
that's
You
amazing.
must have had it must have been a eureka moment for you because I can't think of a better ending than
Yeah, it felt
this.
good. It felt
After
right.
generations, this light coming to life and the added touch of people's porch lights going on all around everybody's stunned and thrilled by it at the same time. And there is a sadness around lighthouses these days because they played such a pivotal role in so many ways in decades and centuries past, but now they're kind of historical mementos almost, and it's sad to see them when they're not functioning anymore.
Yeah, again, I think the same thing about barns. When I drive by these beautiful barns that are sitting empty now or in decay, it hurts my heart because we are losing something so beautiful from our past.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I'm also seeing like I know my husband couldn't ever be at that lighthouse, a non-functioning lighthouse, without talking to somebody about how to get the lighthouse. And he doesn't know anything about lighthouses, but he would do it because that's just who he is. And I thought that seems like a gift Logan would give back to the community
Yeah, yeah.
because I don't
Right.
know. I really
Well, speaking
believe.
of barns, I own a
Yeah,
barn. My buddy and I bought one about across from my house about 5 years ago and have been restoring it ever since. So I share your love for them, although
thank you.
barn restoration is a daunting task.
Yes.
Probably so as much as bringing back an old lighthouse.
It's a labor of love for sure, but thank you
Oh,
for
it
doing
is.
it
It is. Yeah.
because, then it's there for the next 150 years, and that's important.
Exactly. It's all about keeping it around. That's right.
Yeah, for sure.
I have one more reader question. The sea sometimes feels like another character in this book.
Yeah.
Why is it such an important part of telling Logan and Charlie's story? I agree with that. There was this communal relationship, especially between Charlie and the sea. But what is? Tell us how important the sea was to you in creating this story.
I think the ocean has always been everything to me since I was a child. I found renewal there. I found buoyancy there. I found safety and fear there. I found discovery. I love the idea of this undiscovered world underneath the surface that we see, right? These fathoms that we'll never know about. I've gone to great lengths to snorkel the Great Barrier Reef, to be in Ecuador, to, like I love the ocean in all of its iterations. And Maine's ocean is fierce and beautiful. And I'm a polar plunger. So like I'm in the ocean even in the winter. It's
Mm.
22 degrees outside and I'm walking into the water with a bunch of ladies. And I come out feeling stronger and clearer and more creative and happier. And I don't know, to me, it's a source of renewal, always has been, and inspiration. I just stand at the edge of the sea. Like if I can get on a good jetty or a good rock, I'll just stand there and just let the wind and the sea rush around me. And I get so many ideas for writing. Like
Mm.
it just is like, I don't know, a rush of creativity. Like it's
Yeah.
hard to explain. I'm not doing a good job explaining it, but to me, it is a character in my life, and I'm glad that that came through for some readers.
Oh yeah, it definitely did. Did you spend much time? I assume you spent some time in lobster boats, just basically familiarizing yourself with it, right? Or not?
I
Did
have
you?
never been on a lobster boat.
I can't believe that.
I know.
Really?
And I'm wearing it as a badge of pride because I have friends who are lobstermen, and I say I kind of can't now because then I can't with a straight face at book at meetings. I can't say like I've never been on a lobster boat. And I think it's fascinating. I've been around them a lot.
Yeah.
I have been on a working waterfront many, many, many times in my life, but I have never set foot on a lobster boat.
Ah, well, if you
Yeah.
talk to anybody who's worked as a sternman, I suppose they'll tell you you're lucky.
Yeah, right. Well, I've had many people invite me. Like I said, like after this book was out, they're like, yeah, come aboard, we'll do a trip. And I have to say no. I'll say, I'll
Yeah.
meet you in the
Well,
bar
I
after.
assume, by the way, that the reaction by the local lobstering community was a positive one for you. I mean, you must have got some feedback from them,
I
right?
think so. Yeah, I think so. I think that, yeah, I haven't heard it. I mean, listen, if it's negative, it hasn't gotten to me yet, so we'll see.
Yeah.
I still don't
But
have my
you,
Goodreads
I
password,
thought
so.
that particularly when you waded into the issue of ropeless traps, which is, you
Yeah.
know, a rather controversial thing right now. It has its supporters and it also has its detractors. And I thought, well, that's brave to because that'll spark an argument anywhere along the Maine coast right now. But you came, or Charlie came down in favor of at least giving it a chance, right?
Charlie came down in favor of looking at what might work best for now and the future, but she doesn't, I was really careful with this. I know the debates. I know that it's fiery, and I know that innovation and change is often hard. We're seeing it in so many, it's the history of America, right? Um, but I think as prices come down on new technology, as bugs get worked out, as things get streamlined, we start to incorporate it little by little, and then there's change, right? This one is a big one, and I think again, I don't know much about this, but I think it's because it's in response to something that might not be happening, which is
It's
Rose
the
getting
bigger debate
right,
around the
exactly.
entanglements and all that. Yeah.
Entanglements, right. So of course you're on the defensive already when you're kind of being asked to respond to that. But I was trying to look at it just as technology and change because so much of the book is dedicated to the lobster industry that's really unchanged in so many ways. Like I spend a lot of time talking about the trap and the kitchen and the parlor, right? And these things that have just been brilliantly designed sort of since day one and maybe redesigned, tweaked a little bit, but essentially are still working and perfectly suitable for the work. And so I don't want to come down on the side of change, and I don't want to I'm not a purist or like, um, I don't know. I think I'm somewhere in between of like, embracing the old to inform the new. And I hope that came across in the book because Charlie doesn't come down one way or the other. She uses her old traps, but she
Right. And,
investigates
and
this.
and there's also the expense, of course, which is a
Of course, which is
big issue.
mentioned in the
Yeah.
book for sure. And she says how it's, unattainable for many and that
Yeah.
she's piloting it because, of a grant or something. But
Yeah.
yes, all those things taken into consideration for sure.
Uh, Quick question. Do you eat lobsters?
I do. I did last night. Nobody in the book eats lobsters, but yeah, I was out in Port Harbor Booth Bay last night and had
So
a
this
nice lobster
this
roll.
didn't change that part of your life. Your
No.
newfound relationship with lobsters was not enough to make you turn down a boiled lobster.
No, I'm not crazy. No, I
And
think, listen, we all make our personal choices around those things. I
that's
think
right.
that
That's right.
I
We
just, as a
do.
creator, I couldn't put anybody having a meal of a lobster in the book. That would have been incongruent to what I was doing with the storyline, but it hasn't changed my
Yeah,
life.
because food is a big issue, plays a big role, especially with the celebration at the Cove and
Yeah.
very good descriptions of all the things that Herman's cooking up and now that you mention it, there was no mention of lobster there. I didn't realize that until just this minute. So, uh,
Yeah, I
tell
I
me
think
about the you have
yeah.
some. I was looking at some of the blurbs here, and the one that I absolutely loved was the one it says wow, incredible, and that's attributed to Shannon's mom. I think that takes a really special author mother-daughter relationship to have that second in the blurbs on your book. Is that how was that literally her reaction to reading it?
Yeah, that was her text to me. Wow, incredible. Like I just thought like I can get no better endorsement, right, than my mother being floored. And I don't often see this. When I my first two books came out for the teen audience and I just was like, boy, I really just want to get a teenager to have that quote on the front of the book, right? But it's not. It's a trade publication or it's another author. And there are systems in place for this. But for this book, I thought I just have to cram something. That's my personality, right? To have like, wow, incredible, Shannon's mom. Because then you have to take a double take. Like, wait, who is Shannon? Did I even see the name of the author on the book, right? My bio isn't even on this book. Like, I'm kind of a private person. So as I welcome you into my home, but like, you have to do a double take. Like, wait, who's Shannon's mom, right? And then it's just my mom, but she's my everything, right? She's my mom.
Yeah, right. Well, it's something it guaranteed to make people smile when to
Yeah,
have a
I hope
parent
so.
crowing about their child. So,
Yeah.
it stopped me in my track, and that's like the first page of the book.
Yeah.
I said, "Oh, look at that! That's really cool
I
that
think
her
it sets
mother's
the
in there."
tone,
So
to be
it was
honest,
a
Bill. Like,
great.
I think that this book was really born out of me seeing a lot of like divisiveness in our nation and like a lot of name calling or finger pointing. And I just thought, like, that's not what I see when I look around my coastal community, like, or Maine, really. I see when tragedy happens, casseroles are at the door, people pull together in response to things and in preparation for things. And I just think, like, I wanted to show that. I wanted to kind of get that fabric of Maine on the page. And we do it all the time, every day, regardless of politics or religion or your leanings. We see humans first. And I wanted all of that, the food, the laughter, the relationships, the generational entanglements, all of that to come through on the page. So,
Well,
and
I'm glad you
it's
did
moms.
because we need more of that right now.
Yeah.
And I mean, we get so caught up in the political discourse and the strife and all that that you're right. We lose sight of the power and the value of community,
Yeah.
especially in these small towns, and how people uh, come together in tragedy or in hard times, like when Mem was sick and Charlie needed all the help she could get
Yeah.
to a celebration, which is how the book climaxes. So good for you. I mean, we need more books that make people feel good these days, and this one certainly did. So,
So
what's
good.
next? Are you going to be writing soon again, or are you
I'm
already?
I'm writing. I always write two books at a time. I sort of use them as a palate cleanser. When I get sick of one story, I move over to the next one, and then I get really bogged down on that and think this is terrible. And then I go back to the other one I was writing. I'm like, hey, this isn't so bad. And then I eventually one comes to the top. So I am finishing up Love and Lighthouses now. That will be out next year.
Oh,
And
Loving
then
Lighthouses.
I'm
Okay.
writing a little twisty, unexpected, not mystery, and it's kind of sort of genre bending, but it'll be fun.
Is
Yeah.
that's not a sequel to this? It's a separate.
Love and Lighthouses isn't a traditional sequel, but you'll be in the same place and you'll have some of the same characters.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
It's
Well,
an
that's
expansion
worth looking
of.
forward to. Well,
Yeah.
believe it or not, we are pretty much out of time, and it always happens. It flies by, but you can tell by the reader questions that this one really struck a note with people, and
I'm so
certainly
glad.
certainly did with me. And I got through this whole 50 minutes without getting in and talking in depth about the steamy sex scenes. So good for me.
Well, I'll tell you this funny story at the end here. I had a gentleman in one of my book club meetings this summer, and he said, "Boy, those were steamy scenes." And then his wife said to him, "Did you mean to say that?" Because of course we steam lobsters, and they just had this like little banter between them, and I just thought it was really cute. So take from them
Yeah,
my
well,
own.
it was well done, and it was when they finally got together that it was I was saying, well, good, because they both showed a lot of restraint, put it that
Yeah.
way.
Well, yeah. I mean, we're what, 300 pages in before it happens. So you're like,
Yeah,
yep, you
exactly.
have to be satisfied
Ex-
as the reader too. Yeah, for sure. But
Well,
thank you for
Shannon,
loving the
thanks so much for
characters.
joining us
Yeah.
tonight, and best of luck to you on your future work. Keep it up. You're doing
Thank you.
great,
Thanks.
and
You're so
you're rep-
gracious and
you're
kind and
representing
lovely.
Maine well.
Good. I'm glad. That was my intent. It's been a
Mhm.
good home for me, so I'm
Right.
grateful.
Well,
Thank
I
you
hope
so
we
much.
we meet again.
Yes,
Thanks.
lovely. Bye-bye.
And I also want to thank all of you for joining us today. A second shout out to Sherman's Maine Coast Bookshops, the Park Danforth, and Coffee by Design for sponsoring tonight's event. Our next book club meeting will be on September 24th at 7 p.m. when we will welcome Monica Wood to talk about her novel, How to Read a Book. Great title. That gathering, as always, will be live streamed on Facebook and YouTube. Until then, have a great rest of your summer, and thanks for joining us. Good night, everyone.